Agreed.
Really?
Yep.
Now you're center stage, Tracy.
I think you don't want to say
Sure.
anything or you end up in the middle.
Yeah, that's what Shauna was saying. If you talk or make noise, you will be the speaker in the middle, or you'll be the speaker in the highlights.
I'll be quiet.
Well, it looks like we have about everyone on except Brad. Is that right?
Yeah, my camera's not working. I don't know why.
Somebody's partying.
That would be me at the studio.
Good for you.
There's little kids still here dancing for a few more minutes. So I'll probably keep myself muted unless I need to say something.
Well, it is 6:30, and since we have everyone here except Brad, maybe we could just kind of start a work session here for a few minutes. There's a couple of things I'd like to mention for sure. One thing, I guess we want to go over this position, right? That maybe talk for a few minutes about that. But if I could take just a minute to begin with and just review with you which we think is a really great thing, you know, as far as care funds are concerned. We tried to cover all the businesses in Hooper, not only through Hooper City itself, but also through Weber County. But the CARES Fund provisions will allow us to upgrade our chamber so that in the event that we're having these types of meetings, like a Zoom meeting, it can be a little more interactive with those who may not be in the chamber itself, but along with those who are in the chamber. So it would upgrade our microphones. We can upgrade with a couple, one large TV screen, so that if we had people that were sitting in behind the curtains, but the curtains were open, we can have a screen back there. We could have another, we'll have a second screen that we could move up closer to the council, or at least closer to the dais if we needed it. It will also upgrade the projector that's in there. And along with that, it'll upgrade cameras so that if we have a meeting and someone from the audience is talking, it will pick them up. Not only will you be able to see them, but you'll be able to hear them. I'm trying to look here, Shauna, if there's anything else that's on the list. But anyway, through CARES funds, we can upgrade all of this so that in the future, when we have these types of meetings that maybe we're not able to all be here at the city building, it will still work really well. How do you feel about that? I mean, we thought it was a great idea. We've got plenty of money to do that, even after we've moved funds to the county, as we talked about earlier in the year. But it'll just upgrade everything, even all the plugs that we plug the microphones into and things like that.
Hey, Mayor, are you taking bids for that type of work, or do you have somebody already?
We have had a bid, and to do everything we talked about would be $18,320.41. So we do have a bid. It's through the company that has done other work here in the city in the past. Plus, I was going to mention the TVs will also be portable. I mean, they'll be on a stand, so they can roll from, you know, they won't be in a permanent location. You could roll them to another room if you had to, or things like that. So is there any other questions or about that?
I know a guy that does that type of work if you need other bids for that, but if you're happy with what you got, that's great.
Well, no, I think that'd be good.
Okay.
Certainly would need to follow the city's purchasing requirements to take
Right.
several bids.
Yeah, we should probably have a couple bids, I would assume. Whatever those requirements are, but no, it sounds great, Mayor. I think that upgrading, anything we can use that care money on to better serve the community. I mean, I think that's, it's there. So let's apply it. And that's a great way to do that. So.
And the second part of that is even our front doors. The CARES money will allow for putting in automated doors so that you really don't have to push a crash bar or things like that. You just touch a button. It makes it handicap accessible as well. And so we had a bid come in for that. We had a bid come in for that as well. I don't see the amount on here.
So the bid for the door was about 5,400, and that was with Moy's Glass. I also reached out to Valley Glass and one other company, but they just never actually returned the request for a quote. So Moy's was ready to do it there. And then TV Spec is who has bid for all the system in the office. But Ryan, if you want to email me one other person, I'll go ahead and take a look at that. I did get one other bid from another company that another city had suggested, and they were much higher than that. TV Spec is the state contracted distributor for those types of things.
I'll have the guy give you a call.
Okay, well, that sounds good. So these are two things that we felt like, will fit under the CARES umbrella that we could upgrade. And so we just wanted to run that past the council and see how you felt about that. And then again, the balance of the money we've moved to the county. And we do get a list back from them of those businesses in Hooper that they've helped. I don't know if there's been any business that has reached out to any of you that wanted or had questions on this, but the county, I think, has done a really good job in covering all the businesses here in Hooper. And one of the reasons they were more than willing to do that is because we sent quite a bit of money to them, in the three different amounts of money that we received here in the city. So
We've received 3 amounts, Mayor.
yeah, there's come in 3 different, they call them tranches. I don't know really what that, but yeah, so it's been divided up into thirds, and it's come in 3 different sections.
How much of that money did go to people in Hooper?
I don't have the full amount here. I don't have the list in front of me, but we can, in fact, I'll be on a meeting with the county in the morning where they review that. And I actually could specifically request that list that would be current as of tomorrow morning, and then I could get that out to each one of you if you'd like to review that.
So I just have a question. When we originally talked about this money, we met as a council and we approved to have the first check go towards the county, but we said we discussed the remaining 2 checks or 3 checks that were coming. Is there a reason we didn't discuss that as a council?
No, it was every third was the same amount of money. I guess we just anticipated that if someone was not being covered with that money here in the city, that would have been brought to our attention. I know.
Okay, I just was curious based on our discussion when it first came out that I thought, and somebody else on the council could correct me if I was wrong, but that we approved the first go around, but that we wanted to discuss the next 2 or 3 to see if the city had a need as a council, but maybe I misunderstood that.
Well, there were 3 sections, 3 different times that money was given to the city. So there were 3. And there's still a deadline. I mean, that's still open till the end of December. So in the event, again, and in the events any of you hear of anything, we can specifically request that business be notified and given the information to apply. So it really is still, we still have some control over that.
Great.
So one more question. Any money that we don't use specifically for the city, does that go back to the federal government or does the county keep that money?
You know, it would go back to the state, but right today, the county is the one that's responsible for that. In other words, they're the ones that's going to have to be responsible when that money's audited. The only things that we'll be responsible for are the things that we've reviewed with you. I mean, we'll have to be accountable to the upgrade of the chamber and how much that is, and the upgrade to the doors, and some of the sanitizing equipment that you've seen here in the building. You know, the hand sanitizer that you put your hand under, and the dispensers for that, the water fountain, you know, that's been upgraded. All those kinds of things that we've specifically spent money on here in the city, we'll have to account for. Any other questions on that, or? Okay. Well, as we've, if we get back to this position that we've talked about, I've had, you know, Councilman Hill, you sent in a planner job description from Syracuse City. We have that, and of course I still have the information that I send out as far as a coordinator. Tracy, I know you've sent us some information in on that, and Chris Cave actually sent in some information on kind of a planner. But you know, some of these descriptions, it just doesn't really seem to fit where we are today. If this planner was to be responsible to the director of a planning department, we don't have a separate planning department here in Hooper. So I just wanted to run past you the thought that in the event that, as we are right today, if the need for a planner comes up, that how about contracting a planner that has experience? It'd be one that we would visit with, that's had experience, and you know, whether he's worked here locally and familiar with some of the surrounding cities, or, but in the meantime, we would also look for someone that could eventually become that. I know today, Tracy, you're taking care a lot of the kind of both hats, right? As the engineer, you sometimes, I mean, as an engineer, you kind of know what's the best plan to proceed with something.
Yeah, that's true. Where the weakness comes in is the non-technical side of planning that most of the cities seem to be able to get relative to things like, you know, architectural features, things like, you know, how do I describe it? I mean, I can see them, you know, some of the community development type things, dealing with the potential for commercial type look and feel, and being able to look at ground and determine, you know, how the open space might look, and you know, some of those types of things. So from a technical planning standpoint, yeah, I mean, yeah, well, I've been doing that for 20 years here, but I've always felt like there was kind of a little bit of missing in our ordinances relative to how to address some of those things that aren't really technical and engineering related. So that was, that's the only thing that I struggle with myself. So.
Mhm. Well, one really good thing, I think this is a real positive thing, is when they had the first meeting from our Wasatch Front Regional Group, it was, as that information comes in, we've had over 500 surveys that have come back already. And those have been loaded in and accumulated, based on the questions that were asked. And we have the percentage, of people that have returned the surveys that responded to each question. And I think as we collect that information, it will kind of give us some direction, Tracy, along the lines you were just talking about. It'll give you some direction. It'll give us some direction as to what the citizens of Hooper are really looking for as a city. Because it was taught, one of the questions on the questionnaire, for example, was about would the citizens have they ever thought about having a main street and things like that, and the look of that main street, if there's a certain theme that would be illustrated by the buildings and things like that. So I really feel like as this information comes back, it'll help kind of give us some direction as to the type of person that could fill the void that we have. I mean, right today, fill the void in kind of, filling that void as far as completing the information or the ideas that the citizens may want to have in parts of Hooper. But I think as we make that information known to all the council, as it's all accumulated back, I think it'll be real helpful. Are there any other thoughts?
So
Cindy,
then I guess, Mayor, if I understand your thoughts, so currently you don't believe there's a need for that position, but maybe some subcontract work? Is that your thoughts?
As far as a planner, as far as just someone that would be hired as a planner, as I look at the information that's been turned in, even from the application that Councilman Hill turned in for Syracuse City, I think there is kind of a need. I just don't see the fit the way it would fit in a city like Syracuse here in Hooper. But I do, along the lines of what Tracy said, I do see a need for someone who, and I call him a coordinator, which eventually could become a planner. I see a need for someone who could learn and understand what the ordinances of the city are. And when developers come in and turn in plans, they could be reviewed. They would know if they're complete or incomplete. Someone that would coordinate with other entities to make sure that all the letters that we need are collected properly. When it comes to, well, I don't know. I do see a need for that.
So I guess my question is, as you see the city staff as it exists, so a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, meeting with Mayor Green and the city council, we determined that the city, based on its growth and based on what was going on, definitely had need for another individual inside that city staff overall to take workload off of Jared or our public works director, to take load off of our city recorder, to take load off of our city engineer. But your assessment then, if I understand correctly, is in this last year is that all those individuals are not overcapacitized, that we have no need to offload any of those work flows. Those are all, everybody's copacetic, we're good to go.
Well, I don't think we're running broke, right today. However, I think there could be a need to relieve some of that pressure. I don't think there's a lot of pressure to where, at least no one's indicated to me that still all our building inspections, and that's another thing, this person could maybe get the background to become a building inspector, which we are contracting that work out. But I think Public Works, I think sometimes, like with Jared, some of his challenges that he has is just having to follow up on things over and over again, just to make sure that everybody's doing what they agreed to do. I think that takes a lot. Well, I know it takes a lot of his time because he's expressed that. But we don't have anyone that right today that could step in and say, well, this is on a main street, do we want all brick buildings, or do we want more than one story buildings, or if there's any type of commercial area. We really don't have, we've never really sat down and planned what we would like something like that to look like. And personally, I think it's critically important that we have a plan in place as to where, this main street would be and how it would look, how many story buildings would be there. But first we have to have some interest in that. And again, I think this survey is pointing out that there's a lot of interest in Hooper City among the residents to have an area like that. But whether we hire someone full-time to go in and plan that, or we could do some contract work, contract someone to look at an area like that and give us some ideas, that may very well fill the bill too, until we become a bigger city.
So then I guess, may I recommend moving forward that we evaluate our current city budget as it stands. I would like that to be added to an agenda, and we could reevaluate the budget as it stands, the money we allocated aside for that position, and find a better resource to use that money then to support the city and or its staff moving forward. If this position is no longer a valid one to discuss, we set aside a full payroll for that position, full FTE. So as a council member, I would like to move to that we have a discussion as an agenda item where we can actually make some movements to revisit our budget and to take that money and put it into a position that or a situation that will better the city as a whole and the citizens. That would be my recommendation. If the stance of the city staff and the mayor is that position is not a current valid need, we set money aside, then let's find where we can use that money to better strengthen our city and our staff. Anyone have any input on that?
Well, I'm not counsel, but I will tell you, I still like the idea that of someone to take some pressure off of as a coordinator. And my thought all along is, why couldn't that person be an entry-level planner that has the background in schooling that could actually grow into something that's beyond just shuffling paper. And that was my original thought of the thing, but that doesn't appear to be exactly what everybody's thinking. So, you do what you need to do. So.
But I think we're talking about two different things here. I mean, the mayor just went through a whole list of things that this person could do as a coordinator. And then on another whole different subject, we talk about this person being a planner doing something with Main Street. So, I mean, there's two different ideas there, and I'm with Tracy. We need a coordinator. Whatever we call this position, whatever the title is irrelevant at this point. It's a body that comes in on our staff and takes load off of the engineer, the all the other staff members. And more importantly, this person is being prepared to fill the void that's going to occur in the future. I mean, we're a couple of years away from Tracy retiring, and there's going to be a huge void, and we're not going to have anybody to replace, and to pick up the ball and roll with it. So in my mind, it's preparing somebody to fill the void that's coming, this avalanche that's coming sooner than later. So it's a matter of training somebody over the course of a year, 2 years, or whatever that time takes to get them up to speed and know what we want them to do for Hooper City. That's my thoughts.
I like it.
I agree 100% with Ryan. I think we need to get somebody sooner than later. Why are we waiting? I get that we're taking care of business right now, but we want to be forward thinking people, I believe, in the city, and what we're doing now is not that. Let's get somebody, let's figure out what we identified that we needed a person we've actually put in the budget. And now all of a sudden we don't need that person. I disagree that we don't, that person is not needed. I think we need that.
I would want to imply that the person is not needed. I'm not implying that the amount of money that was set aside can't be used. What I'm saying is that we just need the right person for the right job. Maybe talking with Tracy, what would it be like if there was an engineer brought on that's kind of an entry-level engineer that worked along with you as well as did some of this other work that we're talking about, so that they were prepared when you retired?
Well, I hope that there's somebody actually, when I retire, that you'll take a look at somebody that actually is that I've worked with, a younger engineer. But honestly, this is the only city that we represent, of about a dozen of them, where I have this role. All the rest of them, they do technical review. They never ever have to be at a public meeting, except unless there's some presentation on a master plan or a project. And so, this is a very unique city in terms of what the engineer is asked to do, because there isn't another person doing what I'm doing tonight, making presentations about subdivisions and rezoning and everything else in that. So that's very unique. A young engineer is going to have the same kind of training that I started with. It's very technical, water, sewer, highway, storm drain. It just won't bring the other part of this that I think is part of an important part of a growing city. So, but that's just my take on it. So.
Okay.
So I just had a comment. So I understand that you're going to retire and you would like it replaced from your company. I thought the mayor's comment about having an engineer to work alongside you and then to take care of those things also, coming into it, knowing that was not a bad idea.
You can approach it however you'd like. All I'm saying is, that's a position that's going to become engineer. That's not a position that's going to become your planner, because that's a whole different set of technical abilities that I've already told you that I don't really have. I can do everything you want relative to your engineering and that, and even of kind of fudge my way through as long as I could as part of as the city planner when called upon. But it's not the same tools, and neither would an engineer working alongside of me have those tools as well. So, but I mean,
I see that, and makes sense.
So maybe we ought to look at, as we're looking out 2, 3, 4, 5 years, Tracy, it sounds like we got two things to look at is, what does the transition plan look like for our engineer? Do we bring on someone for a year or plus as a junior role in that engineering side? And then at the same time, I don't know, I still I still think that this, whatever the title of what we give it, coordinator, project coordinator, whatever it is, I think there's capacity, and it sounds like, there's multiple people that feel the same, that we can get someone in, very entry level, let them come in and cut their teeth on some stuff, and then grow with the city as we continue to grow, and hopefully they find their home here, and they find a long-term position where, they're here with us 20, 25 years, and we don't have to change through that position again, but they cut their teeth with us and they grow with us. It's going to be tough to get someone super experienced, but maybe, we get them in, and to me, the reason I continue to push this is that I think we're in the plan right now of changing a lot of stuff within our infrastructure of the city, what it looks like, what our future is going to be. Why not have that individual be part of that process? It doesn't make sense to me not to, but it appears that for some reason, Mayor, you feel very strongly against that, and I don't know what the hesitation is.
Oh, no, I don't feel very strongly against what you just described. What I said is I think we need to get the right person for the job. And I just, one thing I've sent out a list of everything that I felt that position would cover, that I felt like we had a need for. And if you, and I've asked for the same thing, we talked about everybody sending in the same thing. What is this position that we're discussing? What will be their responsibilities? And if we
who do you want to take the lead on that?
Well,
somebody's got to take the lead. Somebody's got to own it. So, if you
Okay.
want one of the council members to own it, we can do that. But somebody's got to put it together. We've sent suggestions, but
well,
somebody's
no.
got to come back and say, this is what it looks like.
Okay, so let me just ask this to the members of the council. Do you want me to use all the information I have today? Are all of you done sending in all the information you have for this position today? If you are, then we can move forward with what I have today. But I thought, not having heard from all of you on this, that maybe there was still more that some of you would like to recommend, so some more ideas that you would have.
Yep, I was curious.
Sorry to interrupt. It is 7:03. Just to
Okay.
remind you.
Okay. I was just curious real quick. We're saying these people, but are we, saying these people who are qualified, or just somebody who thinks we might think like the job? Because I don't know very many people that would qualify for a city planner job.
Well, that's a good question. We really haven't put together a job description with certain details of the job. We have a whole list of things, but we haven't really put a job description together yet.
Mayor, to answer your question, I think we've submitted all the information that we're going to. So I think we just need to move forward.
Okay.
Compile what you've got and give us a job description and let us review it and go forward. So,
Okay.
but we do need to start our meeting, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it is time to start our meeting, so we welcome all members of the council here, Tracy, Shauna, members of the community that are with us. Looks like we've got quite a few. And to begin with, we'll probably forego having a pledge of allegiance, because that would be a little bit awkward the way we're set up on this Zoom meeting. But as far as the reverence, I'll offer that tonight. Our Heavenly Father, we're always grateful to come before Thee and give thanks unto Thee for the blessings that You provide for us each day, that You've provided for us throughout our lives. And especially we're grateful to live in this area that we do. We're grateful to live in this country that we live in. We're grateful for being able to meet here tonight and have the opportunity and the abilities to discuss and enjoy the freedoms that allow us to make decisions and talk about decisions that will help bring about a way of life that all of us can grow to love and appreciate and have been able to experience. We ask thy blessings will be upon this meeting. We ask thy blessings will be within each household, and that we'll again be able to share our thoughts and our ideas in a way that will be clear and understandable, and that there'll be good that will come from meeting together tonight. And this we say in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Okay, first on the agenda, we'll just ask if any of the council has any conflicts of interest on any of the agenda items that you would need to disclose at this time.
I do not.
Okay. All right, I see that there are none. Okay, if you've had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting of November 5th, 2020, did any of you see any corrections or amendments that need to be made to those sets of minutes? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the city council meeting on, what's the date here? November 5th.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Cox. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second from Councilman Paulson. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it looks like those minutes are approved. Okay, each of you should have had in your packet a financial report for September 2020 and October 2020. So if all of you, hopefully all of you have received that, and Teresa said if you have any questions about what's on those financial reports, just contact her. I don't know if all of you have had a chance to review those, but again, if you have any questions, just call here at the city office and visit with Teresa. Okay, at this time on the agenda then, we have a citizen's comment. And Shauna, I don't know if we had any written comments that have come in. Have we had?
No, I don't have any written comments that have come in.
Okay, are there any comments that any citizen that might be on the call would like to make at this time? If you make a comment, would you tell us your name and your address and then limit your comment to 3 minutes? Okay, it looks like we don't have any comments, so we'll close the citizens' comment. First item of city business that we have is a rezone from a residential 1 to a residential 2. This application has been made by Rob Miles and Brant Miles. So it looked like I can see both of you are on the meeting. So do any of you have any comments that you would like to?
Do you want me to share my screen and go through?
Oh, there you go.
Presentation?
Sure, Tracy. If you'd do that, that'd be great.
You bet. Oop, back up. So can you hear me all right?
Sounds good.
Okay, all right. So this is the presentation that was put before the Planning Commission relative to this item here, and this is a rezone of 2.5 acres located at the corner of 6300, a rezone request from R1 to R2, the corner of 6300 West and 4600 South. And on this, you'll see in the area in red is the area being requested for the rezone. I went ahead and put the Fielding Acres subdivision next to it, so you can kind of see how it fits into a recent project that's been completed along 4600 South. This happened to be the one of the two rezones that was actually in progress before the resolution came forward on rezone requests. It came before the Planning Commission in the summer, and they opted to table it until November. And then last month in November, when it came around, they brought it back to the agenda and had a discussion on this. Just a couple more things to look at again in terms of where it sits in our overall generalized future land use. It's right up here in this corner of those two roads right there. It's currently shown land use medium density, and then in terms of the zoning, I'll zoom in here just a minute, but this is where it is relative to what's around it right now in terms of zoning. Again, zoomed in, this is the property on the left here, right there. It's medium density on the land use map, and then over here on the zoning map, you can see that it's this piece right there, and there is a little bit of R2 already around it, including the Fielding Acres subdivision that has just been developed by this same developer, Robin Brandt Miles. Just the discussion at the Planning Commission, there were a lot of really good things said relative to where you stand with your general plan review and the resolution, and why rezones and things aren't being considered, other than the fact that this one was being considered before the resolution went into effect. And then there was the other thing that I think that was mentioned that was positive, even in spite of all those things, is its relationship to this other subdivision. It almost feels like it's a continuation of what's already been done there. We did get full improvements along this section, and actually with the anticipation that eventually the rest of this property would develop and we'd be able to finish with full improvements around that corner. Curb gutter, sidewalk, and storm drain improvements. And so when all the discussion was done, the Planning Commission voted to recommend this rezone to the City Council. And hopefully you've maybe had a chance to read the minutes from the Planning Commission, but that's a brief summary of their discussion that night. So any questions for me?
Okay, well, thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
So do we have, I know we had both Rob and Brandt, both have zoomed in on this meeting. Does the council have any questions for them? I know when this was brought up at the Planning Commission meeting, we understood that there'll be 5 homes put in here, and some will face to the west, as well as some face to the south, like the 3 that are currently there. Let's see, there's Brandt.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So there'll be what, 2 facing south and 3 to the west, or the other way around?
No, like you said first, that's the plan, at least with how we've initially drawn it up with the architect.
Okay, so that would finish, just as Tracy kind of indicated, around the corner with curb and gutter and back to the north on the east side of 6300 West. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
I don't have any questions for Brandt or Rob. I think it was fairly cut
What was that, Councilman Paulson? You kind of broke up just a little bit.
I said, I think the subdivision makes sense based on, what's been laid out and, based on the planning commission's recommendations. I don't have any more questions for Rob or for Brant.
Okay,
How did the
well,
commission?
if there's not any other questions, we'll entertain a motion.
I
what was
think
the
Councilman
planning-
Hill had a question.
What was the planning commission's vote on this?
I don't,
They
I
voted
think
to
there were only three of them there, and I think all three of them voted in favor when it was all said and done. Don't you you remember that, Mayor?
That's what I remember too. I think it was a unanimous vote. I think that there was a little discussion on making it. I think they tried to make it clear that this wasn't in any way trying to sidestep the resolution or anything like that. But based on the size and the fact it had been applied for earlier, and there are some real positive things that are coming from this. There's a main irrigation ditch that runs across the south side of this division that will continue to be piped. And so there'll be some other really positive improvements that will go along the road of 4600 South that will go along with this approval of this development eventually.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve the rezone request for Rob Miles at 4600 South, 6300 West from R1 to R2 as recommended by the Planning Commission.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay. Thank you. That passes.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have final approval for the Morning Meadows subdivision of 29 lots. This application is from Brad Buse. So Tracy, maybe we'll have you kind of lead us through this discussion and then we'll see if we have any questions.
Yes, I'm not going to take a ton of time with this because this is a carryover from your last meeting. So again, here you see the property about along 4,000 South at about 5,300 West. And it's the same thing that we showed the last time. This is the plat for the 29 lots that the Planning Commission recommended final plat approval to the council. I'll quickly just go through again the discussion that we had as a council the last time. All the lots met all the minimum requirements. We'd received all of the will serve and final letters. All the items from our Public Works and Engineering memo had been completed. Again, the Planning Commission had that discussion about that stub street, but opted not to recommend bringing it back. The developer talked about fencing along the east boundary and said that he had reached out to the property owner next door. Even though we hadn't required a land use fence, he had said that he would put one in if a separation fence, if the property owner wanted it. And up to this point, he had said he wasn't in favor. I did mention at the last council meeting that the Planning Commission had allowed this recommendation to come forward to move this temporary turnaround off of these lots here and onto the property that now the same developer has purchased. Brad and Lewis now have purchased this property, so they can move the temporary turnaround off of these lots, which as Public Works, we think that's a positive thing. And then the last discussion, you remember, we had the discussion about open cutting the highway in order to be able to do the connection with the vacuum sewer. Public Works, we drafted a letter to UDOT explaining why we believe that to be an important thing. And I don't know exactly what you were provided by Shauna relative to the record of this, but I told this out of my email that I was copied on. This is the Region 1 permit engineer communicating with someone in his own staff. You know, based upon the city letter, I will allow an open trench in this case for the sewer line. And then he goes on to talk about the requirements associated with repairing the asphalt once the open trench, the trenching has been done and the work has been done on the connection with the vacuum sewer. And so this was the step that was needed in order to get permission to do to build the sewer the way engineering and public works felt like it needed to be done in order for it to be done correctly. You know, at least from our standpoint. So that was the extent of the follow up that was required for the meeting tonight. Any questions?
Okay, well, thank you, Tracy.
Huh.
I think you made it real clear that that open cut is about the only way we can properly hook up to the sewer system. Is that right? And so that was just,
Well, yeah, I think in our letter, we addressed all the things that we were concerned about relative to making that happen in an appropriate way. And clearly, Region 1 at UDOT, David was able to see that and see that, okay, I can understand why that's needed. I know they don't like to do this, but they at least, you know, are able to see that in this particular case, it's a positive thing. So.
okay. Okay, so I do believe I saw, thank you, Tracy. I do believe I saw Brad on the meeting with us, or someone that would represent Morning Meadows.
We're here.
Okay, well, it's good to have you here. Does the council have any questions for Brad?
I think we asked them all last week, or last meeting.
Okay, if there aren't any questions, we'll entertain a motion.
I did have one question.
Oh, okay.
Last meeting, we talked about the east property line where there's several trees growing on that property line. I'm just curious how we're going to include in our motion language to take care of that property line for the future.
So I understand. So the question is, if there's a tree on the property line, what do we do about that, right? How does that?
Yeah, do we want to include
right
language in our motion to address that now, or does that come at a later time, or what? How are we addressing that issue that'll surely come up?
May I say something? The landowner to the east, Nathan Hall, they'd like to keep as many trees standing as possible. Obviously, it's been surveyed and it's staked where the property line is. So I just want to do kind of what they want to have done there. And then, you know, in the future, if the fence needs to go up, then behind the east border of a new lot, then they'll probably have to tear down the trees to put it up if it's right on the property line, or put it a little bit onto their property to let the trees stay. There may be some lot owners that like those trees also. So I just hate to tear down any trees that look nice and the neighbors like. All the dead ones we're gonna you know, tear out and get rid of, but the ones that are healthy, we'd like to leave them there and we assume the lot owners would probably like the same thing as does the owner to the east, Nathan Hall. He stated that he would like to leave as many trees there as possible.
And I can see it going both ways. You know, if I was to buy a lot on that east side, I mean, I would say 50-50. Somebody's gonna want a privacy fence and somebody's gonna want a tree to stay. And so I just need to feel comfortable with the city being taken out of the equation or having any responsibility at all after the subdivision goes in. If somebody comes back and says, hey, city's on the hook for removing this tree and taking care of my property line now. So I think we need to address that in our motion.
I think that's a good idea. I totally agree with that.
And although most of the private or the lot owners won't see it, we can include language in the developer agreement that we can always reference and show them if they come in asking for the city to do something. We can always point to it right here. The developer agreed, and I don't know that there's necessarily anything we would put on the plat, but we can at least put it in the agreement if you want something like that. So
That would seem to work.
Yeah, I think all you need to say is that both property owners, the developer and the people on the east, have agreed to leave the trees. If somebody in the future wants to change that, it'll be up to them and it won't be the city's obligation.
yeah.
I like that, Reed.
Okay, are there any other questions? And Councilman Hill, that's a real good point. And so, Reed, you would be comfortable with that in the developer's agreement, if that's where it's stated, that should, if part of the motion is to make sure that that's in the developer's agreement, that would take the city from having any liability as far as removing any trees. Or stepping in and trying to solve a property line dispute.
Yes, and you could put even more direct language if you wanted, something to the effect that the city takes no position on the trees and it's a decision to be made by the property owners.
Okay.
Good.
Like it.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Sounds good.
Yeah, the other positive thing about that is that the ditch that used to run there is now being rerouted. So the ditch that ran along that east property line is also no longer a concern. And I think that's a pretty positive thing. So not having to fight that ditch amongst the trees and everything else is going to go on there. So that's good. So.
Okay, are there any other questions we have for Brad? Okay, if not, we'll entertain a motion, and as part of that motion, if you could kind of state what we've just reviewed.
Yeah, I'll be glad to make a motion. I'd make a motion that we approve the final plat of 29 lots for Morning Meadow subdivision at 5350 West, 4000 South. As stands, with the inclusion that the city takes no official stance on the trees, that will be left to the decision of both landowners at the time that it becomes a discussion.
Okay. As part of that motion, do we need to make the point that this needs to be part of the developer's agreement? Would you want to add that in, or do you feel? Is it?
I don't think the developer will be involved, will they? I mean, once the property is purchased.
What was the question?
I think to have it in the minutes is probably okay.
Okay.
I don't see a problem putting it in the agreement as well, if you feel more comfortable with that, Mayor.
Okay.
So I'll amend the motion.
You're just ready to teach it.
I'll amend the motion to include that language in the developer's agreement as well as in the minutes to allow the property owners to rectify the situation with the property line on the east side of the development with the trees and the fencing. And then I'll go ahead and second Chris's motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Paulson and an amendment by Councilman Hill and a second from Councilman Hill. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
Okay, last on the city business part of the agenda is final approval for Country View subdivision, Phase 2, located at 5500 South and 5700 West. So Tracy, if you'll bring us
Yep.
up to speed on that.
So what you're seeing right now, and apologize, my title doesn't say phase 2, but it was intended to say phase 2. But what you're seeing right now is the overall total of the whole Country View Estates footprint. And what they're here tonight, phase 1 has been approved for quite some time, and the construction is moving along quickly. This is in what we call our high density residential patio zone, the only place in the city where this actually exists. And the phase 2 includes 21 patio homes. And if you're not oriented, I think you probably know where this is, but Hooper Water Improvement District is right here. The UDOT facility is right here, Sinclair. It's all right in that same vicinity. And so I wanted to kind of just go back to when this came forward originally. This was the image that was used to basically help understand what this might look like as it developed. The black line that I've drawn in here represents the difference in the two phases. So phase 1 on the east and north there is well underway and has built enough homes and foundations to be able to now come and ask for phase 2 approval. And phase 2 represents the extension of this lower road and a cul-de-sac that you see to the west. And so phase 1 had 20 of these patio homes for this 55 and older subdivision. Phase 2 has 21 homes in it. And so this also came before the Planning Commission last month. This is the plat for phase 2. I don't know how many, let me just go back. I don't know how many of you remember being involved in this. It was quite a few years in the making and relative to an ordinance that would address it. But this is on the 10 acres, getting 41 lots. The ordinance actually allows 6 units to the acre with 40% open space, but because of the way this laid out, they're actually only ended up with about 4 units to the acre, and still the 40% open space is all landscaped. The roads are all public, the utilities are public, but all of the rest of the ground is privately maintained by a management company hired by the HOA, and it's all fully landscaped, sprinklers and turf and trees, and the plan included a pickleball court here, a Bowery in an open space here, a tot lot down here. All of that's written in the developer agreement, including entry monument signs and pillars, which you've probably seen if you've driven by phase 1 over there. So that's kind of the whole history of where we got to. Again, this is the plat for the remaining phase 2, the 21 patio homes. So the discussion at the Planning Commission went basically like this. Final plat is in compliance with the preliminary plat, and all the plat corrections have been made. Again, like I mentioned, phase 1 has completed sufficient on-site and off-site improvements to qualify to come and ask for a final plat approval for phase 2. We've received all the final approval letters from Hooper Water and Hooper Irrigation and the Fire District, as well as the will serve letters from Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion Energy. All the public works and engineering memos all those items have been addressed. At the Planning Commission meeting, there was one gentleman that stood up and talked about the irrigation line along the northwest boundary. That area, can you see my cursor when I move it around? Okay.
Yes.
So that irrigation line runs along this boundary up here. And there was, he was concerned because there's an 18-inch pipe that's over here, and the developer ended up putting a 24-inch pipe because that was pipe that they had available. And so they went in and put the larger pipe in, which is a positive thing. But Jared, our public works director, he's very observant and careful. Notice that we've got to have a way in this next phase to make a connection between those two sizes. And that's what part of what this gentleman was concerned about. Well, how are you going to tie a 24-inch to an 18-inch? And I mentioned that Jared had us already tell the developer to include a junction box, concrete junction box here that would make that transition. And so, those things have been thought about and discussed. I mentioned to the gentleman, hey, if you got any other concerns, you ought to go talk to the public works director about that. Anyway, the planning commission, they wanted, in their motion, they wanted to see that that whatever needs to happen here is kind of the first thing addressed in phase 2. Speaking with Jared earlier today and talking about it, he said, well, clearly I'm going to make sure it's addressed before irrigation season. Whether it's the very first thing they do, he said, I don't know whether I really exactly how to enforce that. We'll have it in the developer agreement that it has to be done before irrigation season. But I don't know that he felt like he was going to be out there and that's the first thing that happens. But that was one of the things the planning commission motion stated. Yeah, make sure that happens before anything else. So I share that because that was a part of the discussion with them. So anything questions about that, this phase 2 of Country View Estates?
Okay, I guess there aren't any other questions. Thank you, Tracy. And I see the last statement on there actually indicates that pipe will be part of the developer's agreement anyway. So that, one thing you did mention at the planning commission meeting is the width of the roads. And I think that was pretty significant.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of these PUDs and PRUDs and these patio home neighborhoods and that they push really hard for narrow streets and private streets and things. And we just as part of our ordinance for this right from the get-go said no. We're concerned about the ability for people to park, and so there are the wider streets. We did include parking along this area right through here, extra parking, but just concerned that when somebody has an event at their home, that there's plenty of room for not only parking on both sides, but also for access by emergency vehicles. And so that was part of the original ordinance. So.
Okay. Okay, are there any other comments or questions for Tracy? If not, do we have someone on the meeting that represents Country View subdivision?
Can you hear me?
There you go. Yes. Okay. Jessica.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I'm with Sierra Homes. Yep.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions for Jessica? Okay. If there's not any questions, thank you, Jessica. And Is there anything you would like to add?
Just about, I guess, what Tracy was just talking about with the pipe. I did meet with Carl. His name was Carl, but I met with him after the meeting and talked to him and let him know that we will take care of that as soon as we can. And I did let him know we'd get it taken care of before irrigation season came back. And he said that was just his worry, that it gets taken care of before irrigation. So we'll get it done.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I guess we'll entertain a motion at this point.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve phase 2, final approval for phase 2 of Country View Estates at 5600 West, 5600 South for 21 patio homes.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Hill. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Was that Councilman Northrup?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that passes. Okay, at this point, we're at the end of the agenda where we would have a citizen's comment. Are there any citizens that would have any comments at this point? Okay, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Hey, Mayor, do I count as a citizen? Can I make a comment?
Oh, well, sure you can.
Okay. Hey, I just wondered, did you get a phone call from a gal named Lorinda Mayfield from AYSO Soccer?
I have not. I
Okay.
did not get a phone call from her.
I just have been talking to one of our citizens. Jason Tonioli knows her. I believe they represent the UYSA Soccer Association as well as AYSO. And there's this organization that's got a significant amount of money that they're willing to invest in a soccer facility somewhere in Weber County. And I don't know if we're interested in something like that in Hooper City, but when I say significant, it's upwards of $1 million to invest in a nice soccer facility. So maybe a topic of conversation for the general plan, but I do have her phone number if we want to contact her and get some more information.
Okay. Yeah, if you could get her phone number and that'd be great, Councilman. I think I'd heard that from Jason Tonioli before.
Okay.
They had money, but this has been, quite a while. Well, it was almost a year ago, in fact.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They're still interested, still looking for a spot somewhere.
Okay.
Mayor, could I share one other thought about the discussion we had earlier?
Sure.
So I just want to circle back and just kind of talk about the future of city engineering here, just so you're kind of be thinking, because that was brought up. Well, what about just a young engineer to come in and I want to make mention. I'm hiring young engineers in my office, and I don't get anybody out of school for under about $65,000 a year. Because most of them are coming out with master's degrees, and that seems to be the market right now. And that person, and outside of the big projects and the development review, I don't think our firm gets paid that much through the year outside of those things. And so and then somebody who's the city engineer would not have survey, probably doesn't have CAD drafting experience. may not, certainly, you know, the other things that we do relative to stormwater permitting and some of those types of things. And so all I'm saying is the cities that have their own in-house engineering are basically, you know, Ogden, Layton, Kaysville, and even in Kaysville, we do most of their outside consulting, but they do have an engineer that does their development review. But beyond that, not a whole lot other than just managed consultants. And, you know, and then, you know, the bigger cities are the ones that really can afford to have somebody in-house doing engineering, but all of them have planning in-house. Not all of them, but most of the smaller communities have planning, Syracuse, Clinton, you know, and so forth. So just wanted to make you aware of those types of numbers as you think about staffing. So.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I just
Okay.
want to make one comment,
Okay.
if that's okay. We had a very good meeting this last week with the WFRC, for the general plan. I thought it went really well. There were a lot of good comments made. Those are public meetings. I think it would be nice to have as much participation or just views from members of the council and anyone else interested. That's all.
It really was really well put together, and they stick right to the subject and right to the time. I mean, when they say they'll be done at a certain time, they were done at a certain time. So it was really good. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Councilman.
I could also mention, Mayor, just for everyone's information, we were successful in as a city in obtaining a $54,000 grant for transportation master planning. We received that agreement yesterday, and the mayor has signed it, and so we're going to proceed to begin to do some serious transportation master planning in the city with a nice grant. At the same time, West Haven City is submitting a large grant to do regional active transportation planning for all of Western Weber County cities. And that's a regional thing where, you know, we would just talk about how we would tie in a long-term, road improvements or that regionally, bike and pedestrian trails, those types of things. And they're only asking from the 6 cities in Western Weber County a commitment of about $2,000 each, and asking the rest of it of the Wasatch Front Regional Council in a big grant. And so we'll see how that goes. The mayor was kind enough to send a support letter, because I think that's also, regional planning is also a really important thing for us to be part of out here. So.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Any other comments?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Here we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.